how to integrate a interview style podcast into a existing channel. And by podcast, I do not really mean an audio podcast, but a podcast nowadays is evolving. It's evolving into a show, a classical show that is also available in the audio format on the podcast, but often nowadays, Joe Rogan, for example, also Lex Friedman, also Andrew Huberman, people like these and also other shows are available also on YouTube. So the primary medium is video, and the audio is just a copy version, a copy-pasted version that just lives on as a podcast. So now the question is, how do you integrate something like this, a show, into an already existing channel? We have to dive a little bit deeper, and the dive a little bit deeper is how to create content very easily. And you can create content very easily if the content is already in your head, and the only thing you have to do is develop a method to actually spit it out. This can be writing a blog, this can be recording video. And since video is the most engaging format, next is probably audio, and next is probably visuals, such as blog, text, and things like these. This means you would do yourself a favor if you can somehow turn it into a video. Because if you then have a video and it is a talk show, it usually is not hugely dependent on the visuals. This means that if you then take the audio and someone listens to it, there is actually not a diagram or a graph or pictures where the people point towards and they speak about them. Such as, oh yeah, just look here, just look here. This is something that is not really good for a podcast. But because the classical interview style with two or more people speaking is just speaking, it's very good as an audio podcast. So now the question is, how do you integrate something like this into an already existing channel? First of all, what do I mean by channel? A channel is basically your channel on any platform. So there is an overarching theme that's basically the brand and your channel. You could also call it your channel. And then you have your different channels or accounts on all the different platforms you actually want to be on. This can be podcast, this can be YouTube, this can be Facebook Watch, this can be Instagram, this can be TikTok. This can be also a self-hosted blog, this can be Medium, this can be WordPress, Tumblr, whatever. So now, if you already have an existing video channel, the content formats that make the most sense these days are as following. When it comes to video, short video is considered these days 0 to 60 seconds. It's the same on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, on Facebook Reels, and on YouTube Shorts. It's basically the same. Also on Thriller, you can post these videos 0 to 60 seconds. On TikTok nowadays, you can even post up to 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or even 10 minutes. But that's an exception. The other platforms still do take the 60 seconds. So you have short form video. That's the one type you probably already have on one of your channels, such as Instagram Reels, such as YouTube Shorts. So you probably have already short videos. And also when creating content, I think it makes sense to make a distinction. If you just have a quick idea, you just either record it like this, just you speaking. If you just want to make an audio podcast, then record it just you speaking without the image. But if you have a longer idea, you actually record something that is longer. And I would make a distinction, because then it's easier to think about these things. Because it's not a medium, a 60% long idea, a 20% short idea, but much more, it becomes clear. This is just a short idea, this is a long idea. A two-way distinction, two different formats, and therefore you have the second format, the long video. So the long video is then also a talking head video, or you just scrambling something onto your notebook and screen recording it, or your phone and screen recording it. These are two very easy ways to record something just using your voice, without editing the whole thing, because if you edit the whole thing, this takes a lot of time and also part of the joy out of recording these things. So now, the next thing I would advise is, if you have different interests, then create different channels, because every interest targets an audience. And if you target the audience of health and fitness, and then you come up with something like, okay, here is how I invest. Of course, this could also be interesting to these people, but the problem is this. You have two sets, mathematical sets. And in each of these sets, so let's just say the hands and the 5 fingers are the interests of people. everybody has 5 interests. Just say 5 interests, like now. And then the problem is that these are not identical. Most people are actually different. Sometimes you actually get them identical, almost, and then they overlap. But the problem is that this is much more unlikely. More likely is that only 1 or 2 interests overlap with you as a content creator and the person who consumes you. So this means the broader your content is in terms of what it is about, the less people can be found that are exactly interested in all of this content. So now, if you have different interests, create different channels. If you have then these different channels and you want to now integrate a show, I would think about it like this. And this is actually just the thought process I had 2 or 3 days ago. Because the problem was that up until then, one of my axioms or one of my assumptions was that it is just more efficient to create content on my own. I can record myself speaking. I can do short videos where this is actually something I tested yesterday, but let's not talk about this. The basic premise is this: you own all of the rights. You don't have to sign any model releases. You don't have to get any rights from anybody. If somebody, for example, makes an interview with you, you make an interview with them, and 2 years after this, they ask you to take it down, then you have to take it down, probably, unless you have a written agreement. And also, maybe the person is your friend, or you don't want to screw off this friendship, then you probably have to take it off. But if you only have yourself, then the only responsibility you also have is yourself. Therefore, creating content, the internet these days gives you access to almost all the content in the world, almost all the knowledge in the world. So basically the only thing you have to do is research something, then make a summary or just anything that you basically processed and now have maybe a better version and think that this is valuable for someone. Now, if you now interview somebody, this is of course the problem. So now, how do you integrate all of these different things together? For me, I started out kind of with blogging. And then I turned these blogs into videos by screen recording them and also talking to them. The audio then was the podcast. And the video was also something I could publish to YouTube. That's the first format. The second format are the short videos. The third format are the long videos that are not consumable as an audio. Often they are consumable as an audio. This, for example, could be consumable as an audio. But as soon as I have something like a headphone and I show it to the camera and then I say, oh, here and here and here, then it creates frustration when listening to this alone, when listening to this as a podcast. So now we already have 3 formats. And because you just may create different channels for your different interests, and if you have 10 interests, for example, and you create these channels for the rest of your life. You set up the system once, and every time you have an idea about something that might interest people in regards to fitness, you publish it to this specific channel as a short form video or a long form video. And this makes it all very easy. This makes it all very long term. And now the show, I would say, does not live on a separate channel. And also doesn't have a separate podcast. At least for me, till now, it looks like this. The show is the 4th format. The 4th format also is recorded, maybe with 2 cameras. That creates, of course, a lot of friction in the back end because you have to edit these things and you have to export these things. And these cutting and editing video takes a lot of time, and also syncing it up with the audio. Then these things just take a lot of time. So therefore, maybe film it with a wide angle lens where both parties are involved, or even more efficient, you can now use apps like Zencaster or more services like Zencaster, and you can call people over the internet. And then they automatically put these 2 images together for you, and you can just download the finished file. So basically, the same lean concept I apply to these videos, where I just either screen record or I record my body and me talking. I press start, I press stop, and that's the end of the story. I don't do color grading, I don't do anything else. And this enabled me to finally record these videos and to get better at speaking instead of getting better at editing. So now, the show is the fourth format. You publish it onto your video channel on YouTube, your video channel as Instagram is also a video channel. You can also post long form videos on Instagram. You can also then take it and publish it as a podcast because it's also an interview style. This means out of the four formats you have, short, long, show, and blog, you take the two formats that are not video based, and these are also the two formats where you don't have something and and show it to the camera and talk about it and then not mention it that this is something you now show and people who are listening don't hear this or cannot listen to this. So you take the two formats that are basically not constrained by the visual component, code, or rather blog and show, and you publish them to the podcast. All of these different formats publish independently. Why does this make sense? Because the short format is something you just publish the next day maybe, or 2 days. I would say the rule is you have to publish it the next day. You can publish daily. That's the maximum schedule basically. Daily shorts, if you are able to record these many things. Also, if you have like 20 ideas, then you record these 20 ideas and then you publish them the next 20 days. And you have content for 20 days, at least short form content. With the long videos, because you're probably not able to record long format videos, so kind of not very long format, but classical YouTube, maybe 2 to 10 minutes, 2 to 20 minutes. And then you publish it on the Monday of the next week. And the daily, of course, you can schedule them maybe at 8 p.m., depends on the different time zones and also at which times, posting times, they perform best. But for me, I just decided I don't want to think about these things. Therefore, I just publish them at basically 12 a.m. And then the weekly, so I take these 3 different time heuristics we all use: the day, the week, the month. And I just use them and create nothing in between. Therefore, I either post shorts daily. The second thing is long videos weekly. Or now the third format and also the third time schedule, interviews monthly and also the blog post monthly, because I'm not able to write these many blog posts. Blog posting or writing also takes a lot of time. Talking is actually basically the most efficient way to get these ideas across to somebody else over the internet. So now, finally, you have it all together. You have the schedule with daily, weekly, monthly. You have these independent schedules, which means I didn't explain something else. The week. When in the week should you publish? On Monday at 12 a.m. Very easy. It's the beginning, just the beginning. And in the month, on the 1st of every month. Now, why the interview monthly? Because you're probably not able to get an interview guest every single week, or because this would create a huge amount of work. It also depends if this is just a hobby for you, or if you are planning to make this into kind of a side gig, or maybe do it full time. This depends, of course. But I would say, depending on the channels, the targeted, or basically the interest channels you have, how many broader channels, how many brands you have, I think it is not really possible to interview daily or to interview weekly. So this means monthly is basically the way to go. So this means if you now, tomorrow, for example, record an interview and you finalize it and the file is ready, basically for publishing, you just say, okay, the current date plus the time till the end of the month is then the schedule, basically. Not the schedule, but then you post it. That's basically the beginning of the next month. So now these two so the blog, if you have a blog, and the interview, the show, basically, live on an audio channel separately. And the audio channel, basically the podcast, is just a copy of half of the videos depending on the different proportions of the production of these videos, depending also on the time schedule and things like these, but are just 2 of the 4 formats, and they are available as audio. This means now you have maybe a blog if you invest the time into making a blog. You have a YouTube channel, which has 4 different formats on there. You only have one YouTube channel, which makes it very easy to create other brands for different interests, because you don't have to manage a clips channel, a show channel, a long format video channel, maybe serious channel where you do higher quality videos. You have one channel, and that's it. So you have one YouTube channel. You have also one Instagram channel, one Facebook channel, because these are the 3 major long form video platforms, I would say. And on Instagram, for example, if you created multiple channels or multiple podcasts, and also if you create multiple podcasts, you have to have multiple accounts at your podcast host, Anchor, for example. And the same is true for you. So the thing is this. The idea is you have one native channel for video. And this native channel for video, I would say, is for short form currently TikTok, at least for me. And for long form is currently YouTube, because TikTok doesn't offer short form. And also YouTube is, in terms of the backend, the far better service, at least from a creation standpoint. So now the idea is to have a native platform and to just copy it to the other platforms. And since video is your main thing, you create basically only videos. Even if you write them before as a blog post, you write them to create a video. So the video is the main format basically. So TikTok and YouTube are the primary platforms for video and also for content, because video. So now what you do is you have this one platform, and then you just copy the content onto these other platforms. In terms of short videos, you copy it from, I copy it currently from TikTok to YouTube, then from YouTube to Instagram Reels, and from Instagram Reels you can share them to Facebook nowadays. The feature isn't available to everybody right now, but I have one channel where it is already available. So now, with long form, YouTube is the primary, then you copy paste it to Instagram, and with Instagram, you can also then post it, share it to Facebook. This means you have 3 platforms for the price of 1, basically. Of course, you have to do the backend, but you can basically increase your range given the audience on all of these platforms is the same and the engagement is the same 3-fold with this strategy. So now, what do you have with the strategy? And again, you have the blog. People who like to read have the blog. People who like to listen have the audio format, only of the videos that are completely targeted to audio. People who want to watch video can watch your videos on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and also YouTube. Short form and long form. And that's the beauty of the system. So now, how to integrate a podcast, a show into an existing channel by just adding an additional format to the podcast, and also by adding an additional format to the already existing channels. Because otherwise, you would have to create multiple YouTube channels, multiple Facebook pages, because they interact as the Facebook Watch channels, basically, and also multiple Instagram pages. But you cannot just create multiple Instagram pages. On YouTube, this is possible. You can have one account, and this account has many sub-accounts, sub-channels, basically. On Facebook, you have your personal account, and your personal account allows you to create multiple pages. But on Instagram, you have to have a different account for basically every single Instagram page you have. So do you want to sign up for 4 different email addresses for one channel and then have 10 channels in total? Probably not. Therefore, leave the channels, add the format.